family. We have a great quarantine cuisine recipe for you. You can use the vegetables in your cupboard, you can use whatever meat you've got, and it's an Instapot, crock pot, stick on the stove, forget it recipe. In most of the parts of the country, it's still at that weird time of spring where it's hot one minute, cold the next, raining, you name it, you got that kind of weather. Here in New Orleans, we're pretty lucky. It's warm, it's already been in the 80s. So we've passed that season, but I still love a quick and easy meal. This is my famous goulash soup recipe. I learned it when I lived in Germany, and I love to make it for my family. I love to put a piece of pretzel bread or a roll next to it. So let's get started. So we're ready to assemble our soup. First, we're going to brown the beef cubes. Put a little bit of olive oil in here. We are using a cut up chuck roast. You could use steak, you could use stew meat, you could use anything that you have. If you prefer chicken, you could probably do this with chicken. I've never done it with chicken, but I don't see why it wouldn't work. I've cut my meat into 1-inch cubes. And I'm going to put it in this pot. I've turned the pot up to medium. And we're just going to brown the meat. We're going to get a nice sear on the edges so that it retains some moisture and gives it a nice color and texture. The recipe doesn't call for it, but I like to add a little bit of salt and pepper to my recipe and to my meat. Again, our goal is to add layers of flavor to our dishes. We don't want it to be just one and done. We want to continually add the layers, which will give your soup a much richer flavor. The meat is starting to brown, but you want it to have a nice sear. What we have now is a lot of liquid in the pot, so you're really going to get more of a braised sort of texture and feel. I want it to be a little crispier. So I'm going to turn my fire up under my pot, and I'm going to let it cook at a higher temperature to remove all of the liquid or most of the liquid from the meat and get that sear that I'm looking for. The liquid is starting to cook down. If you still feel you have too much liquid and you want to, you can pour the liquid off and hasten the cooking process. It's okay to leave a little of the liquid, and I think ultimately it's just to your personal preference. I think this is done as good as we need it to be for this recipe. Once the meat is the way you'd like it, you pull it out of the pot. I have washed the pan that I put the raw meat into. Never put cooked meat into a pan that you have put raw meat into. You'll cross-contaminate it. It could make people sick. Just be real careful in the kitchen. So now we'll let this kind of cook off, because the next step is to saute the garlic and the onions. We had about 3 pounds of beef chuck roast. These proportions for the larger items like the vegetables and the meat sort of depend on what you have in your cupboard and how much you like in your dish. I like a lot of potatoes. We put extra potatoes. Nobody really eats the celery. We don't put as much. So my sauce is cooked down. I'm going to put 3 teaspoons of minced garlic. And then I'm going to put 1 sweet onion chopped. I'm going to turn the fire down because I don't want to burn the garlic. That gives it sort of an off flavor. And I'm going to saute the onion and garlic until the onion is a little translucent. Cooking for about 2 to 3 minutes. When they start to brown, I then put in the rest of my vegetables. I have 5 carrots. I buy a bag of the little carrots and I just sort of eyeball it, whatever proportions you think your family will eat and enjoy. We added 4 stalks of celery. And I try to cut the vegetables in the same size. That way they will cook at the same time. Again, what we're doing is we're getting all these juicy bits, coating the vegetables with those. As I said before, my family really loves potatoes. So this could almost be more potato soup, but it's easier than having people fight over the potatoes. Add those and saute those for a few minutes. coat vegetables with layers of flavor. We have the onion, the garlic, a bit of meat, and all of the fond in the bottom of the pan, and you want to impart that onto your vegetables. So as you can see, our vegetables are starting to get a little color. They're getting to be mixed in with the onions and the garlic. It smells delicious. I wish we had smell-o-vision. Now there are two ways to do this. You can create the stock and the sauce off to the side. I like to put it into the pot because I like to get all of the fond off the side of the pot. So what I do is I pull the vegetables out of the pot and set them off to the side. To our pot, we've added 6 cups of beef broth. We're going to let that cook for a while and let it warm up so the rest of the ingredients will work better. And we're deglazing this pan, getting all of the yummy bits off of the bottom of this pan. To this recipe, we are adding 1 cup of red wine. The recipe calls for 2, 1 for the cook and 1 for the recipe. We are using a Valafrio Carmenere from Chile. Any red wine that you have will do, but remember, when you add wine to a recipe, the better the wine, the better the taste in the recipe. If you use really bad wine, you will taste that in your finished product. Mix those two things together. To the wine and the beef broth, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. Be very careful with the tomato paste, because if it gets to the bottom and doesn't mix up, it will burn on the bottom of your soup, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure you mix it in really well at this stage. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Stir this after every addition. Again, layers of flavor. We want to make sure everything's incorporated well. Next, we're going to add paprika, which is really the ingredient in goulash soup. I am using 2 types of paprika. This you do probably need to whisk into your soup. I am using 3 tablespoons of Hungarian sweet paprika. And again, you want to break up all these little lumps. And I'm also adding 3 tablespoons of smoked paprika. Again, since we're trying to quarantine cuisine, sometimes you may not have accessibility to smoked or sweet paprika. If you just have paprika in your cupboard, that will be great. Any combination, if you only have a tablespoon of one and 3 tablespoons of another, mix and match. You just want to make sure you have a good amount of paprika into your stock. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of dry mustard. At this juncture, we're going to add another teaspoon of salt and some pepper. If you like more pepper, if you like more garlic, if you like more onion, whatever your family desires, taste it. And again, this is a fairly easy recipe that you can mix and match and use really what's in the cupboard. So now we have our broth. We're going to let it get warmed up for a minute. We're going to add our meat back into the stew. And then we're going to add our vegetables. Carefully add our vegetables. Now you want to make sure that the vegetables are covered, and these are just barely covered. I like a little more soup, so I'm going to add a little more wine. You can add a little more stock. You can add a combination. You want to make sure that you have enough juice for these to cook for several hours. And that's it. You put the lid on it, let it cook, and check on it periodically and give it a stir. You don't want things to stick to the bottom of the pan because they will burn. We'll check it in a few hours and dinner will be on the table. cook for about 4 hours, and now we have a delicious dinner. We've paired it with a pretzel roll, and we're ready to eat. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and if you make it, let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to go to Facebook and Instagram and like and follow us. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.